In chapter 4, verse 6, he says, as for me, I'm telling you to finish strong. As for me, I'm already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. So I'm telling you, Timothy, to look into your present without fear of what's next. And here's what it looks like in my world. I'm already being poured out like a drink offering. He's talking about his death. He's talking about his being poured out. It's present tense, which means it's an ongoing process. His death wasn't just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It was one of those drawn-out, torturous processes where he knew he was going to die, but they were stretching it out and kind of playing mental mind games with him. But for Paul, he would say, it's really not upsetting me because I view my death as a drink offering. And it was an act of worship before the Lord. My living, my dying, everything about my life, I've surrendered it to the Lord. And then he also thinks about his death in terms of a departure. So you think about those two things for just a minute. How does thinking about your death as a drink offering and a departure, how does that empower you to face your present circumstances without fear? Well, if you think about your death as a drink offering, which you probably don't because you're not Jewish and you weren't raised with the Old Testament sacrificial system, right? Anyone raised with that? Okay, didn't think so. So here's what that was. In the Old Testament, when they would sacrifice a lamb or any kind of animal before the Lord, they would pour wine at the base of the altar, which was like this added emphasis of thanksgiving, knowing that the reason they even sacrificed animals is because the wages of sin is death. They knew it wasn't that they enjoyed killing animals. They didn't. It was because they knew that their wrongdoings against the Lord had separated them from God and an atonement had to be made. And as a result of extra thanksgiving, they would pour out drink offerings, something they prized very good, was wine to them. So pouring that out was an extra way of saying, we are thankful to you, Lord, for forgiving us and sparing us the consequences of our sin. So it's an act of worship is basically what Paul is saying. He viewed his death as an act of worship, which is pretty awe-inspiring. Not in the same ways that like a suicide bomber views his death as an act of worship, because Christian deaths were not geared with bombs on their vest trying to take out other people. For Paul, his death was an opportunity to share the love of Christ and the sufficiency of Christ for him, even in the face of the worst thing that life has to offer. Even in the face of torture, even in the face of being beheaded, I will view this as an opportunity to show Nero and to show these Roman guards and to show everyone who's watching that Christ is more of a treasure to me than anything else that this world has to offer. He saw it.